1984 Inches is a dystopian novel written by George Orwell in 1949. It is set in a bleak future where a totalitarian government controls people's lives and exercises complete dominance over them. The story takes place in a fictional state called Oceania, where the protagonist Winston Smith lives under the rule of the party, a repressive regime led by Big Brother, the symbol of absolute authority. Winston works in the Ministry of Truth, a governmental institution responsible for falsifying facts and altering history to fit the party's narrative. He spends his days editing official records to align with the lies propagated by the government. Winston is disgusted by the party and secretly rejects the repression he experiences. In a moment of internal rebellion, he decides to purchase an old notebook and begins writing his thoughts against the regime. Writing itself is considered a crime known as thought crime, an act punishable by death or disappearance. Winston begins to realize that the party does not just control his actions, but also his thoughts, and he remains constantly anxious that he will be caught for these subversive ideas. At work, Winston meets Julia, a woman who works with him in the ministry. Initially, he feels distrust and hostility towards her, suspecting that she is an agent of the party. However, one day she hands him a secret note that says, "I love you." The two meet secretly in abandoned places far from the eyes of the thought police and begin an illegal relationship. Through this relationship, Winston finds an outlet for his suppressed desires and begins to believe that he is not alone in his rejection of the party. While Julia's rebellion is more personal than political, Winston continues to dream of total freedom and rebellion against the regime. Winston becomes fascinated by the idea that there is an organized resistance against the party, believing that a secret group called the Brotherhood exists, led by Emmanuel Goldstein, the party's arch-enemy. He longs to join this underground movement. Winston meets O'Brien, a high-ranking party official, and believes that O'Brien shares his hatred for the party and is part of the Brotherhood. O'Brien deceives Winston and convinces him that he is involved in the resistance, giving Winston hope that there is a chance to overthrow the oppressive system. However, this hope is shattered when it is revealed that O'Brien is nothing more than a loyal agent of the party, and everything was a trap to ensnare Winston. Winston and Julia are arrested by the thought police and taken to the Ministry of Love, where they are subjected to brutal torture. O'Brien himself takes charge of Winston's torture, revealing that the party's ultimate goal is not only to control people's actions, but also to control their thoughts. He demonstrates how any form of mental or intellectual resistance is erased through physical and psychological torture. In the most terrifying room, Room 101, Winston is confronted with his worst fear: rats. A cage filled with hungry rats is placed on his face, and O'Brien threatens to release them. In that horrifying moment, Winston completely breaks down and screams that Julia should be tortured instead of him. This final betrayal of Julia represents the destruction of Winston's humanity and the party's ultimate victory over his spirit. After a period of torture and brainwashing, Winston is released back into society, but he is no longer the same person. His mind has been completely erased of any rebellious thoughts, and he has become loyal to the party and Big Brother. In the end, as he sits in a cafe listening to the news, Winston feels for the first time a deep love for Big Brother. His spirit has been utterly crushed, and he has become a mere tool in the hands of the regime he once despised. Through this ending, Orwell shows how a totalitarian regime can completely destroy an individual, not only by controlling their physical existence, but also by controlling their mind and soul. The novel serves as a warning about the dangers of absolute power and dictatorship, deeply analyzing concepts like mass surveillance, manipulation of truth, and the destruction of personal freedom.